cabinet table with reporters in the room. Let's listen.
As I've said, and I'll say again, we've only just begun striking narco boats and putting narco-terrorists at the bottom of the ocean. President Trump said, no, we're taking the gloves off. We're taking the fight to these designated terror organizations, and it's exactly what we're doing. So we're stopping the drugs, we're striking the boats, we're defeating narco-terrorists.
He went on to say, quote, "We always have the back of our commanders. They have done the right things," referring to Admiral Bradley. Hegseth posted on X about it as much last evening. Let's assemble the panel for their take on this, because this story has changed a lot in the last 24 hours. Bloomberg Politics contributors Jeannie Shanzano and Rick Davis are with us. Jeannie is Democracy Visiting Fellow at Harvard Kennedy School's Ash Center, our Democratic analyst. Rick, Republican strategist, partner at Stone Court Capital. It's great to see you both. Jeannie, to what extent has this narrative changed? And how much would you like to be Admiral Bradley today?
Yeah, it's changed a lot from Franklin the Turtle, who he was putting out just 48 hours ago as a joke. And now he is saying that he has the back of the Admiral. I think that the Admiral has got to go before and will testify in Congress. We already know the Secretary has, and this is going to come out. And the reality is, legally, putting aside the Admiral, if Pete Hegseth gave a shoot to kill order in advance, even if it wasn't the double tap on that second tap, that is a violation of war and a war crime, and it is illegal. You have people that surrender. You have people that are incapacitated. In this case, there were apparently people clinging to a boat. You don't just say, well, I'm going to give an order shooting to kill. So I'm not sure any of this exonerates the Secretary. And I do wish he would take responsibility of his position and say the buck stops with him and stop scapegoating the Admiral.
What do you think, Rick? Did the president and the defense secretary shut down this story today? Because you've got two Republican-led committees launching investigations right now on Capitol Hill.
Yeah, look, Congress has oversight on these kinds of activities, especially with the Department of Defense and the committees that you described, Joe. And I have absolutely no doubt that Admiral Bradley will have time, in the barrel, probably in a classified briefing, to explain exactly what they believe their rationale was for the legal underpinnings of the attack. Admiral Bradley is a superstar in the military, a physicist by training, probably one of the brightest of a group of really capable senior leaders in the uniformed service. And I have a lot of confidence that this was not done in haste or without a firm understanding of the legal underpinnings that would allow them to do what they did. That being said, I totally agree with Jeannie. Where's the buck stopping on this one? I would remind everybody that the Commander-in-Chief of the United States of America is a line responsibility to the Department of Defense. President Trump serves in that capacity and has responsibility for everything that happens under his command, within the Department of Defense. And so the fact that the civilian leadership writ large has taken a powder on this and is leaving it up to the uniformed services to clean up, I have a lot of confidence that Admiral Bradley believed he was acting in full accordance with the law, and it will be interesting to see what comes out of this through proper investigation and oversight on Capitol Hill.
Really interesting moment we're in here, Jeannie, because Pete Hegseth said that on September 3rd, he watched the attack live in real time. We had satellite imagery of this while it was happening. When you talk about where the buck stops, doesn't that involve him directly?
It absolutely does. And if I'm correct in this, Joe, I think he said that very proudly on Fox News. He proclaimed that the day after, as the White House and the administration released this video, but not of the second tap. And so, yes, that's absolutely going to come back to Pete Hegseth, and the Senate and the House, as they engage in their oversight, are going to have some really tough questions for him. We also can't forget that the president is at the absolute top of this heap. Why are we engaged in these bombings off the coast of Venezuela in the first place? None of that has been clarified. They have been saying for months it's about drugs, and yet we know that you're going to get more cocaine out of there than fentanyl, most of which is not even coming from the US. None of it makes any sense. They have yet to clarify what we're doing there. And one thing I hope Congress does immediately is stops any bombings until we get to the bottom of what is happening off the coast of Venezuela. Because the administration, from the president to Pete Hegseth and on down, including, by the way, Marco Rubio, who want a regime change in Venezuela, should be answerable to Congress and the American public as to why we are engaged in this way there, and have at this point killed a number of civilians under very questionable legal circumstances.
Well, the optics here were pretty interesting. Rick, the president could have done anything today. He had the cabinet meeting, decided to park Pete Hegseth on one shoulder and Marco Rubio on the other. I don't think they've made their way all around the table yet because they tended to go in one direction, and we heard from Pete Hegseth first. He's already been interviewed, Rick. This is pretty wild. Armed Services Committee inquiries in the House and Senate have already interviewed Hegseth, Dan Kane, the chair of the Joint Chiefs, and Bradley's going to get his turn on Thursday, as you were just describing. How important will it be to go back and review what Hegseth told them?
Look, I think that either this storyline is going to square up and that people will be able to show a continuity of command. In other words, whatever Hegseth said was followed by, the commander on the ground, in this case, Admiral Bradley, the SOCOM commander, all the special forces report to him, and that it was carried out in kind. I think there's a lot of skepticism already over this program of making these attacks in the Caribbean with Republican and Democratic leaders in the appropriate oversight committees. And so for this to come up as a real questionable act in amongst a group of questionable acts, it's going to get a lot of daylight. And we may never actually know the details of the transfers of orders and how they were carried out, because some of that may be classified based on the kind of function that this has been going through. But at the end of the day, I am confident that this is not one that the Congress is going to defer to President Trump on. They're going to want to know that they can go back to their constituents and say, we looked hard at this, we got the answers we needed, and we took appropriate action. We don't know what that appropriate action is today, but that process has started. As you point out, Congress did not delay once this became widely known in getting on top of it and starting to question the necessary officials as to what happened and when it had happened.
Yeah, boy, it was like light speed. Jeannie, you mentioned Franklin the Turtle. We need to close the loop on this. The publisher of the book series, this was a Canadian children's book series, is speaking out about Hegseth's post on X. Kids Can Press, condemning the denigration, violent or unauthorized use of Franklin's name or image, which they say directly contradicts the values of kindness, empathy, and inclusivity that the character stands for. The Pentagon actually responded, Jeannie. In an emailed response, Chief Pentagon spokesman Sean Parnell says, "We doubt Franklin the Turtle wants to be inclusive of drug cartels or laud the kindness and empathy of narco-terrorists." About 30 seconds left. Is he right?
He is absolutely wrong. Franklin the Turtle, Joe, loves everybody. He does not abide for drug terrorists or others, but he certainly doesn't go up into airplanes and shoot them down.
I don't think he owns a rocket-propelled grenade launcher, Jeannie, but we saw the cover of the book. Rick Davis and Jeannie Shanzano will stay with us. We're going to have a lot more to get through in our second hour, and I'll warn you in advance, we might get back in the cabinet room when they go to questions. You never know what's going to happen around here at midday. Not with this White House. I'm Joe Matthew in Washington. This is Bloomberg.